Ukrainians were very upset that India did not support them after the Russian invasion. While India, I think, also did not fully understand why Ukraine feels defending its sovereignty is so important. Now I think the time has come to build on that without hostility to Russia or without deference to the United States or European Union.
In this week's Raj Mandala, sir, you discussed Prime Minister Narendra Modi's upcoming visit to Poland and Ukraine from August 21st to 23rd. This is the first visit by an Indian PM to Ukraine since diplomatic ties were established between the two nations in 1992, and it is also the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Poland in 45 years. So, sir, what has changed, according to you, for Indian policy vis-a-vis Central Europe and perhaps Europe as a whole in recent years? And what are the challenges for Delhi in managing this divided Europe?
I think what happened was Europe tended to fall off the map even after independence because of the East-West divide. So we tended to get closer to the Soviet Union. Therefore, our relationship with the Western Europe, though they were much older, they could not really thrive. The second, I think India's economic policies meant that it was closer to the Soviet engagement rather than with the engagement with the old capitalist Europe. All this changed in 1990. So we expanded engagement with Europe. We also engaged the European Union. But I think it didn't really go very far. So one of the signature achievements of the Modi government in the last 10 years has been really to push ahead go back to Europe, re-engage with Europe in a serious way. So we count the number of times actually the travel between Europe and India took place. PM Modi and Minister Jaishankar spent a lot of time on Europe. So in a way, there was a political decision on the need to engage Europe. So this involved actually both engaging the big powers, that is UK, France, reaching out to new middle powers like Italy, which we didn't have good relations because of the Italian Marines case. And then we also saw the attempt to revive the engagement with the European Union, which had stalled because of the Italian Marines case. So we'll simplify in terms of what all we've done in the last decade. Really, with the EU, we've started the free trade agreement negotiations again. We've signed a trade and investment agreement with EFTA. We have a defense industrial roadmap with France. We have a technology security initiative with the UK. And we have a strategic and technology trade and technology council with the European Union. So there is a general expansion of the relationship, both at the institutional level as well as individual countries. One of the interesting things what India has done in the last decade is really engage these sub-regions. That is the Nordics, who are very good at, green technologies, focused on green transition. The Baltics, again, who are part of this group. So Nordics and Baltics was one thing. Then we also expanded engagement with the Eastern Mediterranean, with Greece and Italy. So thinking of the Europe not just as one big continent, but as sub-regions. So as part of that effort, the engaging Central Europe was also seen as important. But I think the Ukraine conflict delayed this engagement. But now I think reaching out to Central Europe has become part of what was originally part of the strategy. But finally now we are getting down to engaging Central Europe, which is becoming very, very important.
Okay. And so, as you said, there are many moving parts to this. So what do you think are the challenges for Delhi in managing this divided Europe, since this is the first time since the Second World War that Europe has been this divided and this polarized?
Yeah, I think, one for us, there are some over expectations about how India can bridge this divide. I don't think, India can play any major role in bringing peace to Europe between Ukraine and Russia, or between Russia and the West Europe. India, China, or all the other major powers, we can make a difference on the margins, but we are not the principal peacemaker. And there, I think President Putin knows that he can deal directly with the Americans. And I think what he's doing is really waiting for the November elections so that he'll review the situation and see how he can directly negotiate with the Americans. Meanwhile, both Ukraine and Russia are trying to jockey for better position on the ground and are trying to improve their military situation. This way, the Ukraine armed forces have gone into Russia in the last few days. So for us, I think the important thing is to recognize one, Central Europe is going to be important because historically Central Europe was a plaything for big powers like Russia and Germany, which kept dividing these countries, drawing borders as they suited them, and generally treating them as part of their spheres of influence. But today, I think the successful economic rise of Poland, the geopolitical location of Ukraine, today, I think what Central Europe is trying to regain political agency.
Right.
And therefore, in the new order that will be created in Europe, that the Central Europeans will have a very, very important role. Therefore, for India, we need to engage with Central Europe as a region, and the most important of the Central Europeans, which is Poland, as well as Poland has a historic relationship with Ukraine and is very much part of the dynamic that is going on between Russia and Europe. So the new architecture in Europe, Central Europe will have a bigger place. While historically we tended to think of West Europe or Russia, but today I think Central Europe is going to shape a lot of things. Therefore, I think we need to stay engaged on the big geopolitical picture. And then the Central Europe also has enormous amount of technologies. It's a big market now. It has a growing defense industry. So I think there are a lot of things India can do with Central Europe, engaging them as the reality demands us to do it.
So actually flowing from that itself, more specifically, what do you think the top talking points can be in these two particular visits? Like you said, Poland is emerging as the most important for Central Europe. So what are the talking points that we could see between PM Modi and the heads of Ukraine and Poland? And what are the takeaways that we could be looking at from these visits?
Yeah, I mean, today the Ukrainian authorities have issued a statement pointing to Prime Minister Modi's visit and the expected number of agreements that will be signed. Don't forget, Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. We've had, because Ukraine inherited a lot of the defense industry from Russia. Mm-hmm. And for example, we buy a lot of this equipment from Ukraine. And now I think what's happening in Ukraine is the Western countries are trying to build up Ukraine's defense industry. So I think over the longer term, we should look at Ukraine as a potential defense partner. The other is the Ukraine is only in the after the war. Many of us in India have realized how important a producer of grain that Ukraine is. It's a breadbasket of the world, just as our Punjab is. Therefore, I think on farming related issues, on coordinating wheat production, wheat marketing. So there's a whole lot of things there we can do with them. And then the question of geopolitical cooperation, because they also have the Black Sea coast. So I think we need to engage them on a range of new issues because historically, as you mentioned in the beginning, no prime minister has gone to Ukraine. But today, I think there's a possibility for widening the agenda. And contrary to widespread assessment, look, PM is not rushing there. There has been, systematic expansion of engagement in the last year and a half. We had the Ukrainian deputy foreign minister come here. We had the foreign minister come here. We had India's secretary in India's Ministry of External Affairs has been traveling to the Ukraine peace conferences. So I think the intensity of the engagement has taken place on both sides. Whatever the misperceptions that we might have had, Ukrainians were very upset that India did not support them after the Russian invasion. So they didn't have a clear understanding of what are driving India's concerns. Well, India, I think, also did not fully understand why Ukraine feels defending its sovereignty is so important. So I think over the last year and a half, there's been an engagement. Now I think the time has come to build on that without hostility to Russia or without deference to the United States or European Union. Central Europe is important, therefore we engage them. Just as Russia engages China and India simultaneously, we should also engage both Russia and Central Europe. They have problems between themselves, And as the Ministry of External Affairs spokesman said yesterday, that it's not a zero-sum game. So Russia is an important partner, historic partner, so we continue to engage them. And there are new possibilities in Central Europe, so we also need to engage them. And Poland is the very critical central element of most important element of Central Europe. It is one of the large countries. It's the eighth largest economy. It's growing faster than many other European economies. It has got a massive defense industry now. It spends nearly 4% of its budget on defense. India, in contrast, spends only 2%. And it is emerging as the bridge between New Europe and the United States and Brussels. So therefore, I think Poland's role in future of Europe will be very, very important. And for us, engaging them has become important. Poland is also a major industrial power. It is a major market. So I think, and they can invest in India, we can invest there. So I think there is, after prolonged neglect, India is finally reaching out to Central Europe, and hopefully this will be the beginning of a long and sustainable journey looking ahead.
So actually, this is part of the question that you already answered. Like you said, it's not a zero-sum game between, let's say, Russia and Central Europe, Russia and Ukraine for us. But how well do you think Delhi can balance Russia while it's engaging with Ukraine, and what should it keep in mind, or what should it not?
Yeah, so no, when we say it's not a zero-sum game, we're not talking about balancing. So we pursue our interests with both sides. And see what we can do to help them resolve their issues. We're not the main peacemaker, as we said, but we can help them. So therefore, just as, for example, look, India and China have a huge fight now. But Russia is engaged deeply with China. At the same time, it's also engaged with India. So Russia is not trying to balance between India and China. It is trying to pursue its interests with both India and China. So similarly for us, we should engage Russia. We should also engage Central Europe without having to looking over your shoulders and saying, look, if we do something, what do the other guys think? So it is really pursuing our own interests and explaining it quite clearly to all sides that we are here. We, as a rising power, India is interested in Europe. It's interested in Central Europe. And it will no longer be a bystander to the historic change that is unfolding at the center of Europe.
Yes, thank you, sir. That's a very good summary of what you have also said in your piece. Thank you so much, sir. You can read this article on indianexpress.com and subscribe to the Indian Express channel for more. See you next week. Thank you so much, sir.